In case you were wondering what sort of floor space I get to cook in, there you go. This is my entire kitchen. I told you it was small. Hey guys, and welcome back. I may have the world's smallest kitchen, but that doesn't stop me from creating big, bold, flavorful food. And today's episode is all about that. I'm inspired by southern Italy, and I'm bringing the sea and land together in one dish, utilizing two different cooking techniques. Slow cooking, which is one of my favorite ways to cook things. So stay tuned, subscribe, and let's get cooking. So the first thing is all about slow cooking. So I've got all my ingredients there in front of me, and I'm going to be focusing on the meat section first. So we're combining pork ribs, pork Italian sausages, and those prawns that you saw in that earlier shot. So the first thing I want to do is I want to prepare the ingredients that will be slow cooked with the pork. So that means finely chopping some red onion, and also for the full ingredient list, just check out the description box in the box below. I'll have that listed out, as well as the method. And of course, lots of garlic. I'm using a whole bulb. Half of the bulb is going into the slow cooking section, and the other half is going into the rest of the recipe. I'm using lots of fresh herbs here. I love using fresh green herbs like flat leaf parsley, which I'm using in this instance. And then I've got some fresh oregano as well, which is different, slightly different to your dried oregano. It has a lot more fresh flavor to it. I'm using the stalks as well because the stalks actually have a lot of flavor, and I'm giving them a light well, not a light bash, quite a big bash, to release the essential oils, which are then going to permeate into the dish. With my Italian sausages, so I went to BellaVita, which is now my favorite Italian deli, to get these. And these are Sicilian sausages. And I've just taken them out of their casing and gave them a rough chop. And now I'm going to prepare the meat. So for the meat, you want to put some light olive oil. You want to start off by frying off your sausage meat. And then you want to make sure it's nice and brown, and then just transfer it into a bowl and keep to one side. Then with your pork ribs, I've seasoned them generously with some sea salt and some black pepper, and I'm just going to sear them on each side until they start to go golden brown and nicely caramelized. Once I've achieved that and I've achieved the color that I want, I'm going to take them out of their pans, and in the same pan, I'm going to sweat my aromatics. So my aromatics, again, are my red onions that I finely chopped, my garlic, the herbs, and a ladle of chicken stock. I'm using an organic, low-sodium chicken stock, and that just helps bring everything together. Then I'm going to reintroduce my meat back into the pot, put in all of my herbs, the oregano and the flat leaf parsley. Then I'm going to add the liquid, and the liquid is in the form of that chicken stock. Oh no, before I do that, plenty of chili flakes. So the chicken stock comes up until it's able to cover all of that meat. And then, so this is something that's quite special for this dish. I'm using red vermouth, or sweet vermouth, or it's also called rosso, and it gives a very different dimension. It gives a little bit of a herbaceousness to it. I absolutely love this stuff. I've also added a dash of port wine, and this is a sun blush tomato paste. and it's laced with chilies and garlic. You can find that in any Italian delis, and I've added a nice generous spoonful of it into my pot. So I'm allowing everything to bring to a boil, and then it's going to simmer with a lid on for approximately 2.5 hours on a very low heat. Now the reason for that is so that you can get your meat nice and tender and it'll start to fall off the bone, which is exactly what you want. So now let's start with the sofrito. The sofrito is basically a base, and it's made up of, here in this instance, it's made up of chopped tomatoes. I'm using just a basic garden tomato. You could actually use a plum tomato, but I couldn't find any in the supermarket. I've got one whole red chili, another red onion. I'm using a whole one, and I'm gonna dice it up really finely. And this is also where I introduce all my vegetables. So I've got some courgettes, and I'm going to dice up some aubergine. Just make sure that when you're dicing up those two vegetables, that you dice them up in similar sized cubes. They don't need to be perfect, but as long as they're roughly the same size. And that way, they'll all cook at the same time. These are very much Mediterranean flavors, and I just love that. You could also add, more things like olives, but I've got some artichoke hearts and some caper berries that I'm keeping towards the end, where, and then they'll go into the dish just before serving. So I'm using a big wok because it's the only dish that I have that's wide enough to fit every ingredient that I'm putting into this dish. So I'm putting in that tomato paste in a little bit of olive oil, and then I'm gonna fry up my prawns until they start to go coral pink. I've added my fresh chili, a squeeze of lemon, and the lemon is just gonna brighten everything up. And then I'm gonna add all of my vegetables, so the courgettes, the aubergines. Give it a good toss, a good stir. Everything gets to know each other. They make friends with each other. I'm adding my tomatoes, and I've kept the armor of the prawns on the prawns, and that's because prawns have a tendency to soak up all of that flavor, and the armory just keeps everything inside it. So when you bite into it, it's just the most succulent thing. So my pork ribs are stewing, and they've reduced, and I've taken out the bone. I've also now introduced the artichoke hearts and the caper berries, and then I'm going to leave it to simmer again for another 20 minutes, enough time for my pasta to cook. So I'm using these huge shell pasta, and to be fair, this isn't actually a pasta dish with a sauce. This is more of a stew, which happens to have a couple of those large pasta shells. You can actually omit that completely. Maybe serve your stew with, big rustic bread, or maybe an orzo pasta, whatever you decide. Ladle everything into a bowl, sprinkle a little bit of parsley, give it a wipe, and then a final squeeze of lemon, and your dish is perfect. Absolutely delicious. It's a great meal to serve up to families, to friends, just for yourself. What's also nice is that you can actually serve it on a big platter, and then everybody digs in, place it in the middle of the table, serve it with a nice chilled glass of Prosecco, and everybody just digs in. It's the perfect dish for a weekend night in. So cheers, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed watching me make this dish. And if you do end up making it for yourselves, please take a photo or a video and post it on Instagram or on Facebook and tag me in at the Sunday Cook official and let me know that you've made it, because I'd love to see it. For more episodes and more inspiration from my tiny cushion to yours, don't forget to subscribe and like and comment and share, because sharing is caring.